Welcome to Chapter 7 of our Civil War unit, Abraham Lincoln. Lincoln's early life. Abraham Lincoln was born in 1809 in the state of Kentucky to Thomas Lincoln and Nancy Hawks Lincoln. Lincoln did not have a good relationship with his father, and they often disagreed and argued, especially about work and education. In 1817, the family was forced to move to Indiana, and not long after, Nancy Lincoln died of trematol. Thomas Lincoln remarried to Sarah Bush Johnston. Abe Lincoln loved his stepmother dearly, and she helped to educate and raise him properly. First jobs. Abraham Lincoln took many jobs before settling into law and politics. At the age of 17, he took a job on a ferry boat. He then built a flatboat to float goods down the Mississippi River so he could trade them in New Orleans. It was on one of these trips that Lincoln first encountered slavery, immediately believing that it was a great evil. Lincoln also spent time splitting logs into rails for fencing. This later gained him the nicknames the Rail Splitter and later the Rail Candidate during the election of 1860. At age 19, his family moved to Illinois, but 2 years later he went out to live on his own and began work at a small general store where he earned the nickname Honest Abe. Lincoln's education. Lincoln's education was very limited because of frontier life. His stepmother, Sarah Lincoln, helped with much of his early education, teaching him to read and, more importantly, giving him a desire for learning. Lincoln only had about 12 to 18 months of formal education as a child, but he spent much of his time during his teen and adult years educating himself. Lincoln loved reading and learning so much that he would walk miles to borrow books. Lincoln learned how to debate by reading the ancient Greek philosopher and mathematician Euclid and his book on geometry. Euclid's mathematical proofs helped him to form his arguments as a lawyer and later as a politician. Becoming a lawyer. Lincoln's love for learning helped him to become a lawyer. Besides reading Euclid, Lincoln also participated in the New Salem Debate Club. In 1832, Lincoln served as a captain in the Black Hawk War, propelling him to a seat in the Illinois State Legislature in 1834. In 1837, Lincoln taught himself how to be a lawyer by reading William Blackstone's Commentaries on the Laws of England and was then admitted to the bar, joining the John T. Stewart Law Firm in Springfield, Illinois. In 1844, Lincoln joined with William Herndon as law partner, and they traveled throughout Illinois practicing law. Getting involved in politics. From 1847 until 1849, Lincoln served as a member of the U.S. House of Representatives. He was inspired by Henry Clay and believed many of the same things as Clay did on slavery and politics in general. This prompted Lincoln to join the Whig Party. While in Congress, Lincoln spoke out against the Mexican-American War and supported Zachary Taylor for president. This made him unpopular within the Whig Party, and after his term was up, he returned to Illinois to continue work as a lawyer. Adult life. In 1840, Lincoln became engaged to Mary Todd, but the engagement was broken off for a short time before they got married in 1842. They had 4 children in total, but only one, Robert, lived to be an adult. The relationship was often rocky, with Mary Todd losing her temper often. Some claim she suffered from poor mental health, while Lincoln would fall into deep depression and keep to himself. In 1856, with the end of the Whig Party, Lincoln joined the newly founded Republican Party. In 1858, Lincoln was nominated for the Illinois Senate seat, but lost to Stephen A. Douglas, who was the senator that proposed the Kansas-Nebraska Act. National recognition. While Lincoln lost to Douglas, he became a more prominent figure within his own party and across the nation. His eloquent speeches, such as the House Divided speech, and his arguments during the Lincoln-Douglas debates helped give him influence. Lincoln became well known throughout Illinois, and he gained many new supporters. In 1859, a campaign was started for Lincoln's candidacy for the Republican presidential nomination. Lincoln was an underdog during the Republican primaries, but he ultimately won out. Running for president. Running against important figures in the Republican Party, such as William Seward and Salmon P. Chase, Lincoln won the Republican presidential nomination. Lincoln selected Hannibal Hamlin as his running mate, a former Democrat and former congressman and senator, in order to bring balance to his campaign. Lincoln ran against Stephen A. Douglas, John C. Breckinridge, and John Bell, ultimately winning the election with 40% of the popular vote and 180 of the 303 electoral votes. Lincoln chose fellow Republican candidates Salmon P. Chase and William Seward, among others, to serve in his cabinet. Immediately after his election, 7 Southern states seceded from the Union. Lincoln's virtues. Lincoln is known for his views on slavery and his nickname Honest Abe, but to better understand who he was and what he believed, it is best to learn from the man himself. While Lincoln did not write any memoirs or autobiographies during his time, his countless letters tell us about who he really was. Please turn to the primary documents section of your packet to read some of these letters. The first letter, Letter to Fanny McCullough, will show Lincoln's compassion for others as he sends a letter of condolence to the daughter of a longtime friend who was lost in battle. The second letter, Letter to Horace Greeley, will express his views on the war. Keep in mind he already had the Emancipation Proclamation ready and was going to free the slaves, but was waiting for a victory to make it look as though he wasn't being desperate. Finally, the last letter, Letter to Grace Fidel, explains how he got his beard, but more importantly shows that he cared for all and served the people first. Summary. Abraham Lincoln overcame a poor upbringing and a poor education to become one of the most well-remembered presidents in American history. His career as a public figure was defined by his virtuous character and kind heart. Make sure you have the summary and term written down in your notes.